You understand the rules.
A couple brings their young son, Chris, to a specialized center for children with autism, hoping to better understand his condition. They explain that the father's military career requires frequent relocations, prompting the director to suggest that Chris stay at the facility. However, his father refuses, insisting that shielding Chris from difficulties won't help. He must face them to learn how to handle the real world. In the waiting area, Chris quietly recites nursery rhymes while assembling a puzzle. When he can't find the last piece, he becomes distressed until a little girl finds it and hands it to him, instantly calming him down. Years later, Chris works as an accountant. In his office, he assists a married couple struggling with finances, guiding them on how to file taxes to maximize their savings. Grateful, the husband invites Chris to practice shooting at his property anytime he wishes. Meanwhile, Ray King, the director of the U.S. Treasury Department, summons an analyst named Mary Beth Medina. After commending her record, he questions why she hasn't advanced to higher positions. When she insists she enjoys her current job, King calls her bluff by revealing her sealed juvenile arrest record. He tells her that lying on a federal job application is a crime, and the only way to keep her position is to take on a special assignment, identifying a mysterious figure known only as the accountant, who manages finances for dangerous criminals and occasionally kills those who cross him. King gives her 1 month to uncover his true identity or lose her job. That evening, Chris prepares dinner at home and follows a strict nightly routine, turning on strobe lights, blasting heavy metal, and painfully massaging his legs with a wooden rod to calm himself. Haunted by memories of his mother abandoning the family one Christmas, he eventually takes his medication and goes to bed. Later, he visits his client's property to practice shooting, impressing the man with his exceptional marksmanship. Chris then drives to a storage unit that houses his trailer. Inside, he keeps priceless art, foreign currency, and a large collection of weapons. As he lies on his bed, he recalls his time in prison, where his cellmate mentored him in social behavior and taught him how to manage money for criminals, skills that shaped his future career. One morning, Chris receives a call from a British-accented woman who works for him. She warns that people are starting to notice his suspicious clientele and advises him to take on a more legitimate client, to which he reluctantly agrees. Chris's new job brings him to a robotics prosthetics company, where an internal accountant, Dana Cummings, has discovered missing funds. The company hires Chris to uncover the discrepancy, and he agrees to begin the next morning. Meanwhile, Medina analyzes photos of the accountant and sends a partial facial image to the lab for identification. In Switzerland, a ruthless enforcer named Braxton Brax Wolf corners a corrupt businessman in a parking garage, threatening and assaulting him until he agrees to stop shortchanging other firms. At the robotics company, Chris finds Dana asleep in the conference room. He wakes her, and she introduces herself as the one who noticed the missing money. Expecting to work together, she's surprised when Chris insists on working alone. Later, Medina receives word from Homeland Security that the audio from one of the accountant's killings contains a man reciting a nursery rhyme under stress. During lunch, Dana tries to chat with Chris, who struggles with small talk, but listens as she shares a story about her father inspiring her accounting career. Returning to work, Chris fills every inch of the conference room, walls, windows, and whiteboards, with numbers until he identifies a possible leak. Excited, he tells Dana that money is being diverted to a non-existent company. Their conversation is interrupted by one of the company's shareholders, who demands results. Chris says he needs more time to be certain. That night, Brax visits one of the company's shareholders at home and forces him to inject himself with insulin, framing it as suicide so his wife can collect insurance. The next morning, when Chris arrives, janitors are erasing his work. The company owner explains that his friend, the shareholder, killed himself out of guilt and orders Chris to drop the case. Frustrated at being cut off mid-investigation, Chris storms home and endures another violent sensory episode with strobe lights, metal music, and his wooden rod until he collapses, exhausted. The next day, Chris notices a car tailing him. He visits his client's property again to practice shooting, triggering a memory of his father forcing him and his brother, Brax, to train in brutal combat sessions. Their trainer beats them until their bodies are bruised, but their father refuses to let them quit. Meanwhile, two thugs invade the couple's home and take them hostage, forcing the wife to lure Chris inside. When she opens the door, Chris kills the thug, escorting her. The second thug drives off with the couple, but Chris shoots at the vehicle, stops it, and strangles the man for information. Learning that the attackers were ordered to kill him and Dana, Chris executes the thug and heads to Dana's apartment. He arrives just as assassins enter her home disguised as delivery men. Chris kills them both and urges Dana to flee with him. Brax soon learns that the accountant has eliminated his men. Chris brings Dana to his trailer and instructs her to wait outside, but curiosity drives her in. She's stunned to find his arsenal and fortune, but he dodges her questions. Elsewhere, Medina consults linguists about the audio file. They tell her the man could be autistic or a victim of abuse, using nursery rhymes to self-soothe. She digs deeper, cross-referencing aliases tied to large incomes. Meanwhile, Chris checks Dana into a luxury hotel to keep her safe. She asks about his combat training, and he admits that his army father made him toughen up against bullies. He also confides that he has autism and struggles to connect socially despite wanting to. Dana opens up about a high school memory, how she learned card counting just to buy a dress and fit in. Their conversation grows intimate, but when she leans in to kiss him, Chris suddenly realizes something about the case. Someone has been embezzling money only to reinvest it, artificially boosting profits. Later, Chris follows Brax, leading him to a hotel room where a company shareholder has been murdered. Medina continues tracing the accountant's aliases and discovers his true identity. Christian Wolf, an accountant at a small firm connected to several cash-based businesses. She informs King, adding that most of Chris's earnings are donated to neurological research foundations. Returning to the hotel, Chris finds Dana asleep and recalls another childhood memory, his father forcing him and Brax to retaliate against school bullies. Realizing Dana's in danger because of him, Chris quietly leaves. Shortly after, King and Medina raid his home, finding a vast weapons cache and a sophisticated security system. Brax, now employed by the robotics company's owner, installs cameras to protect his client in case Chris retaliates. King then opens up to Medina, asking her to tell him about her past. She admits she once tried to kill a drug dealer who supplied her sister and doesn't regret it. King, in turn, recounts his history with the accountant, how years ago Chris spared his life after confirming he was a good father. That moment convinced King to remain in law enforcement. Since then, he's relied on anonymous tips from a British-accented woman, Chris's associate, to pursue high-profile criminals. King reveals that Chris's former cellmate, who taught him financial crime skills, was murdered after release. Upon hearing this in prison, Chris violently escaped custody. He later attended his mother's funeral, where an altercation led to his father being fatally shot by a guard trying to restrain Chris. King tells Medina he's grooming her to take his place when he retires, including answering future calls from the British informant. When the phone at Chris's house rings, Medina answers. It's the British woman passing along a new lead about the robotics company. Meanwhile, Chris infiltrates the company owner's estate, taking out Brax's men one by one. Watching the surveillance feed, Brax recognizes Chris as his long-lost brother and orders his men to stand down. The brothers reunite, initially filled with anger and resentment. Brax blames Chris for their father's death, striking him repeatedly until Chris gains control of the situation and points a gun at him. Eventually, they reconcile. When the company owner barges in, confused that Brax hasn't killed Chris, Chris shoots him dead. Before leaving, he promises to meet Brax in a week to catch up. Sometime later, new parents visit the same autism institute from Chris's childhood. Their son wanders off and meets Justine, the director's daughter, revealed to be the same girl who once helped Chris with his puzzle. The director explains that Justine is nonverbal but communicates via a computer with a synthetic British voice, the same one that assists Chris. Elsewhere, Dana returns home to find a package.
Then I bread